Hello there folks, welcome back to the Chap's Guide. My name is Ash and I am your host on this journey through men's style, self-development and personal grooming. Now this video is something of a follow-up video to one which I did a little while ago, in which I talked about the habits and traits in life which I had given up to improve my quality of life. Well, it stands to reason that now I'm today going to talk about the habits and traits which I have taken on or embraced as my life has carried along its journey. And these habits and traits have enhanced and improved my quality of life. So stand by. Here come the 5 habits which have benefited my life to the better over the last decade. Now the first habit, which I've written down here on my list of habits that have improved my life, is I have learned to live my life looking forward to the future. Because do you know what? In my younger years, I knew so many people who lived for the moment and for the moment alone. Now you all know those guys, right? You used to go out with them and they would go out on a Tuesday evening and they would drink with wild abandon. They didn't care that they were working the next day. They didn't care if they had a long drive the following day to a new city, or they were having a job interview, or they had something important happening the next day. They lived for the here and now, and they didn't have an eye on the future. Now, many gurus will tell you that that philosophy of living in the moment is a really wonderful way to live your life, by just embracing the instant in that we are alive and sharing right now. It's a great way of looking at life. Don't worry about the future. You could be dead tomorrow. Just live for the here and the now. And I agree, it can be an ideology by which you can draw pleasure from life. But do you know what? I don't agree that it applies to all aspects of life, particularly things around health and around finances. Because when I think of those guys who lived their life with wild abandon when I was young, now they're all overweight. They're all battling life-limiting health problems, things like diabetes and heart disease, and they're only in their mid-50s because they lived the life that they wanted to live. They ate what they wanted. They drank what they wanted because it's something that they wanted to do right here and right now. Yet when tomorrow arrived, it wasn't a very palatable situation for them, because you can't burn the candle at both ends, particularly when it comes to health and it comes to finances. If you spend every penny that you earn when you earn it, you will have nothing left for the future. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoyed myself when I was a young guy. I spent my money, I enjoyed my life, I drank what I wanted and I ate what I wanted, but I came to a point when I decided that I had to start living for the future. I started putting some money aside in a pension. I started investing in my health, taking exercises and eating a balanced diet. And I tell you what, I am so glad that I did, because now I'm semi-retired in my 50s and I'm happy and healthy physically with no health problems at all. So the first habit, which I'm glad that I embraced, was living with one eye on the future. Now the next habit, which I'm glad I embraced, is kind of a follow-on. It cascades down from that first one I mentioned. And this habit is really simply, I started prioritizing my health and my well-being. Because in my earlier years, as I said, I lived my life as I wanted to. However, I knew it couldn't last forever. I used to work nights all of the time. I used to go without sleep. I didn't eat very well. I didn't take exercise seriously. I used to do it now and again, but not consistently. And even worse, I drank too much alcohol and I just didn't look after myself generally. I was becoming old before my time. The writing was on the wall. Both of my grandfathers died in their 50s from heart disease because they smoked and because of the lifestyles that they led. And I didn't want to go down that path. So when I was in my early 40s and I realized I was a parent, I was a father, I was a husband, I had people who relied upon me. And I decided to prioritize my health and my well-being. I quit working nights. I took myself away from that job, which was exposing me to very often and terrific mental trauma. I worked in law enforcement. I changed roles within that job, so my life was more conducive to a happy, healthy and long life. I changed my diet. I lost a load of weight through managing my diet. I started taking exercise seriously, going to the gym very often, participating in sporting activities, running events, 10K events. I still do that to this day. And I was able to switch my life around and turn it into a well-being and health-focused life. You cannot take your health for granted. You have to invest in it for it to pay off in the future. It's just like paying into a pension. If you don't put any money into that pension when you're young, it's not going to pay out when you're old. Same goes for your health. You've got to put the investment into your health in your middle and earlier years, so that in your later years you reap the rewards of that investment. So for me, a habit which I am so glad that I've invested in is health and a well-being lifestyle. Now the next habit which I've recorded here that I have gained the most from as I've gone through life is nurturing relationships on my life journey. Do you know, when I look back on my life now, I realize that I have led the life of something of a loner. And I don't mean it in a good way. I don't mean it in a sort of mysterious lone wolf sort of way. I mean it as somebody who's been quite insular, quite functionally and deliberately a loner as I've gone through life. Now this I can probably reflect back on, and I can see it probably started in childhood. I was an only child. I had no siblings. So I was quite a self-reliant and a robust young kid. And then I joined the military. And I joined the Royal Air Force, which, unlike the Army and the Navy to a degree, as individuals we moved around, not as a group of people in a battalion or a company or a ship's company. I often used to move every couple of years and meet a whole new group of people. And rather than opening myself up to friendships, I kind of became closed in and self-reliant. And I carried that on when I left the military and went to work in different jobs. I was always kind of the guy who was happy standing apart from the crowd and going my own way. And I now realize that I missed opportunities to make connections with other people. I'm regretful that I wasn't more open to making friendships when I was younger, because now, as I've grown older, you know, I realize that those connections that I've made as I've gone through life, they've been people who have opened up my life for me. They've been mentors who have helped steer me on my life journey. They've been supporters who've helped me along. They have inspired me and motivated me to become the best version of myself. And I've missed out on a lot of that because I chose to look inwards and be self-reliant rather than being open to other people. In the last few years, I have probably become more open to making friendships and relationships with people than I've ever been in my whole life. And I'm grateful for that. And I'm grateful that I've embarked upon a habit of making new friendships and connections before it was too late. Because even if you are something of a loner and you're watching this and you don't have a huge network of friends, it's never too late to change. All you need to do is put yourself in positions where you're likely to meet like-minded people, be that in sports clubs, going to a bar, playing in a darts team, or whatever it may be, whatever your hobbies may be, there will be other people who share them. Get involved with it, because believe me, you can never have too many friends in this journey through life. Now, the next habit, which I'm glad that I've taken up, even if it is somewhat later in life, is I've decided to use the gifts and the talents that I was given to make the most of my life. Because, you know, as a young person, like so many young people, I didn't know what talents and skills that I had bestowed upon me. I didn't know if it was physical, intellectual, creative. I just couldn't see what was special about me, what things that I had been given that I could make use of. And as a result, I took jobs and paths in life. I just did what I had to do. I worked to earn money, to put food on the table and to pay the bills. And you know what? It's only been in the last 5 years that I have decided to follow my talents. Now, what I would say to you is I'm not particularly talented in anything. I'm not gifted. When I say I'm using the gifts and the talents that have been bestowed upon me, I discovered that I had an ability to pass a message. I never worked in any profession like that. You know, I worked in law enforcement in the military. But when I retired from my last full-time job, I tried something different. I became a lecturer in a military charity, a field training officer. And then I realized that I had the ability to pass a message to people. So I started doing guest speaking appointments. I used to speak at conferences. I still, only yesterday, was booked as an enrichment lecturer, and I spoke to a group of people. And you know what? Now, I earn almost all of my income through sharing information and passing a message to other people. This seems to be an inherent talent that I have, be it here on YouTube or in the flesh, speaking to community groups, or even speaking in a professional capacity as a lecturer. And these were talents that I've always had. I could have used them so much more productively in my earlier life if I had allowed myself to explore the skills that I've always had and chose to overlook. But I am glad that now I realize that I do have certain skills in certain areas of my life. I have explored them, and they do make my life an enjoyable place to be. These last 4 or 5 years, working here on YouTube and working in the other areas of life that I've just talked about, they have been some of the most creative and enormously enjoyable periods of my life throughout the entirety of my life journey. So if you're like me and you don't know what your talents are until you're late in life, it's not too late. Grab them, enjoy them, make the most of them. Now, my final habit that I have decided to embrace as the years pass me by is to challenge myself a little bit as often as I can. Because, you know, for most of my life, I took the path of least resistance. I used to do the minimum to get the job done. And that was kind of the route that I took. Minimum effort was something of a catchphrase that I used with people. I would just get by. I would be adequate. I never pitched for the excellent or the brilliant. I was happy to be adequate. And that tended to mean that I stayed within my lane. I didn't explore things. I just got on with what I had to do and did it. And I now realize that my life was somewhat beige. It was somewhat vanilla flavored. Nothing special. Could have been so much more. Do you know what? If you had met me in a dinner party 20 years ago, you would have come away from a 20-minute experience with me and thought, what a bloody boring guy. He does his job, he does it adequately, and that's kind of all that he's about. And that has changed. That has changed considerable. Now, I don't know if it's because over the last 10 years, I've been practicing something of a more inflection-based lifestyle. I tend now to look within myself and reflect on things that I've done and look at how I could have done them better, or how I can drag even more enjoyment and success out of the life that I've been living. And now I test myself on a regular basis. I'm up for a challenge. A long time ago, I set myself a principle, a goal, that I would do one thing every month that puts me in a position which I would feel uncomfortable ordinarily. So that means, going to a group meeting, going to something that I wouldn't ordinarily do, participating in something new, maybe a new sport, doing something that I would never have done. And do you know what? This constantly testing myself, it has brought me into a position where I now feel comfortable doing the uncomfortable. And that is a great place to be, because with this mindset, I'm no longer afraid to push open any door, because I don't care what's on the other side. In the past, I would have thought to myself, well, I'm not going to that because I might not like it when I get there. I might not, I'm not going to go to a meeting or a Rotary Club or something or another, because if I go there, I might not like it. Well, now I go there, and if I don't like it, I even see that as a win, because I've ticked something off and I know I don't like it. It's no longer a possible, it's a definite. I've turned something that could have been into a definitely. And even my worst experiences, you can turn them into positive ones. So for me, I test myself all the time. I challenge myself to do things that I wouldn't have done in the past. I now feel comfortable doing the uncomfortable. And that is a habit which I am so glad that I embraced. Admittedly, it was in my 40s. It was a little bit later. I wish I'd done it in my 30s. But it has brought me a level of maturity and broad world view which I never had before. And that is a habit worth having. So there we go, folks. Those are the 5 habits which I am so glad that I've embraced and taken to heart, even at this latter stage of my life, in my middle years. They are equally as valuable to me as the habits which I've spoken about in the past, which I'm glad I gave up and let go, because each, when combined together, equal a better life. And that's what it's all about. Living your best life, being the best version of yourself. And whatever stage you're at, wherever you are in your life journey, it's never too late to make an improvement. I've learned that several times, even in my 50s, and you can do it too. Now, I hope you've enjoyed this video. If you have, like it, subscribe, ask me a question, drop it into the comment section, or send me an email. Remember, I read every single email that comes into me, and I'm the only person who reads them. So you can guarantee that I will read them with no judgment, and it's only my eyes that'll ever pass over them. If you'd like to support the channel, you could buy me a coffee, or you can even become a member of the Chap's Guide family and become a patron. And for a small monthly fee, you can benefit from the additional videos I produce and the personal relationship which I have with my patrons. The link to all of these things you will find in the show notes below. So until the next time, take care, embrace your positive habits, and I'll see you again very soon